Noorsign Books presents Ramadan Miracles, Stories of Faith Found in the Ordinary. The Color of Suhoor, Part 3, What the Wall Showed. On the 27th night of Ramadan, Nour Benali's painting is about to be unveiled at the school exhibition. A family frozen in a moment of Suhoor, and a truth too heavy for a child to carry alone. But sometimes the hardest thing to see is the very thing that begins to heal.
The 27th night of Ramadan came hot and breathless. Posters for the school's Eid al-Fitr exhibition fluttered on Medina walls. Come see the light of Ramadan. Children tugged parents' sleeves, mothers adjusted scarves, fathers checked watches, calculating iftar timing. In the Benali house, clothes and nerves rustled. "I don't see why we all have to go," Hamza muttered, smoothing his hair in the mirror. "Because your sister's art is there," Hafsa said, fixing her scarf. "You are never too old to show up." Karim buttoned his cleanest shirt, fingers lingering on a frayed cuff. He avoided the mirror. Samir hovered by the door, hands in his pockets, trying to look as if he could not care less and failing. Amina wound her scarf, leaving a slim fringe of hair. She lifted her headphones, then set them back down. Not tonight. Salma checked her phone's battery. Her dress fell just right, a small victory of skill over money. Nour wore her usual school uniform. It felt too plain, but anything special would feel like a lie. Her palms were damp. Her heart ticked too loud. They left the riad in two loose groups, Hafsa with the girls, Karim with the boys, space like a visible crack between. The school gate buzzed. The courtyard was threaded with paper lanterns. Someone had wrapped fairy lights around the pomegranate tree. Inside the hall, plastic chairs faced a small stage. Along the walls, mobile display boards formed a bright paper gallery. Nour's painting hung on the far wall under a small clamp light. She knew exactly where it was. She didn't look. They sat. A boy recited Al-Quran about Ramadan and Laylat al-Qadr. Children sang nasheeds, acted a small play about sharing iftar. Parents clapped in soft bursts. Nour's focus flickered, always reeling back to the moment ahead. When the headmistress finally said, "Now we invite you to tour our gallery. The winner will be announced at the end," Nour's legs turned to dust. "Come, show us," Hafsa said, standing. "I don't know where it is," Nour lied, voice thin. They moved with the slow current of parents along the first wall. Little kids' drawings made everyone smile. Stick families, crescent moons, lopsided mosques. Nour's painting waited on the last board in the quietest corner. They reached it. Hafsa stepped forward, eyes still on the painting before it. Then she looked up and stopped. Under the small spotlight, Suhoor glowed. The warm lamp floated above the table, casting its circle on faces and food. The brass dates bowl gleamed. The harira steamed. The plates, the bread, the chipped glasses, every detail familiar. And the people. Hafsa's painted profile was unmistakable. Curve of nose, chin, the way her scarf sat. But it was her eyes that arrested. They held layers. Tiredness, love, swallowed words, humor that hadn't yet quite died. Tiny shadows beneath. The glint that suggested tears not yet shed. Karim's image sat opposite, his chair turned a few degrees away, one hand on bread, the other curled on his thigh. The line between his brows deeper than he realized, his body leaning not into the table, but away from its center. Between them, their children. Hamza, jaw tight, shoulders tensed, eyes sliding sideways toward his father, as if measuring. Salma, spine straight, head inclined toward Hafsa, hand frozen halfway between her own plate and her mother's, caught in eternal half-reach. Amina, body turned slightly outward, headphones hanging like a lifeline around her neck, eyes down, fingers on her glass, but not lifting. Samir, smaller than reality, hunched, attention on his bowl, spoon clenched as if it were the only solid thing. By his chair's leg, a ghost of gray curling up. And Nour herself, nearest the viewer, wide eyes watching everyone, small fingers pressing into the tablecloth as if to study the whole scene by touch alone. Yusuf's chair was vividly empty. Its back caught more light than anything else. No figure, no shadow. An absence painted with as much care as any presence. At the bottom, one word in careful script, Suhoor. Hafsa's hand flew to her mouth. Her other hand crushed Nour's shoulder without realizing. She stared. Her chest rose and fell faster. Tears, large and sudden, slid down both cheeks. "Nour," she breathed, "you painted." Karim arrived then, drawn by Hafsa's stillness. He followed her gaze to the painting. For a second, he seemed not to understand what he was seeing. Then his own profile registered. His jaw tightened. His hand at his side curled into a fist, then opened. His eyes traced the lamp, the table, Hafsa's face, the children, the white chair. Then they found the painted little girl at the end of the table. Then, slowly, the real girl standing in front of him. The hall around them blurred into low noise. "Nour," he said, his voice thick. She flinched. He bent until he was level with her, knees cracking softly. "Is this what you see, ya bunayeti?" he asked, not accusing, not soft, just raw. Nour's throat closed. Her eyes filled. She nodded once. "Yes," she whispered. Then the rest tumbled out, pushed by fear and a month's worth of swallowed words. "But I don't want to see it anymore. I'm tired. I want to see something else. I want us to be like before, or different, not like this. It hurts." Her face crumpled. Tears finally spilled. Behind her, Hamza stiffened. Selma's hand covered her mouth. Amina looked at her headphones, then let them hang loose. Samir's eyes were huge. Nour waited for the shout. It did not come. Karim closed his eyes for a brief, breaking moment. When he opened them, something in his face had cracked. Not the hard, defensive crack she knew, a softer one, like a wall that had realized it was too heavy to hold itself up forever. He straightened slowly, turned toward Hafsa. Their eyes met over their daughter's head. For the first time in months, they looked. Not as enemy, not as blame, as two people held up against a mirror they had never asked for. "I'm sorry," Karim said. The words were small. No explanations, no but, no if you hadn't. Just two syllables pulled up from somewhere deep. Hafsa stared at him. For a heartbeat, pride and hurt and years of swallowed anger fought across her face. Then her own shoulders dropped. "I'm sorry too," she said. Around them, nothing obviously shifted. The fountain in their courtyard was still dry. The unpaid bills hadn't disappeared. The word divorce had not magically unspoken itself. But between two people who had built a house and then almost broke it, a crack appeared in another wall, a good crack, just wide enough for a breath to slip through. Salma made a small choking noise that was half laugh, half sob. "It's true," she blurted, then flushed. Hamza's jaw worked. His eyes flicked from painting to parents, then away. His fists loosened. Amina wrapped her headphone cord tighter around her fingers, then stopped. Samir stared at the gray shadow near his painted chair, then at his real hands. They flexed, empty. Madame approached quietly. "Mr. and Mrs. Benali," she said softly, "your daughter's work moved all of us. You should be very proud." Karim gave a strange, shaky laugh. "We are," he said, "even if it hurts." Hafsa nodded, wiping at her cheeks with a corner of her scarf. "Who knew she saw all this?" she whispered. "Children always see," Madame replied gently. "They may not have words, but they see." The headmistress's voice called everyone back to the stage for the contest result. They drifted away as a cluster, leaving the painting under its small spotlight. Nour glanced back. On the wall, her family stayed frozen at Suhoor. The lamp shone, the chairs did not move. The crack in the fountain remained, but something in Nour's chest had shifted. Whatever happened next, they had seen. On the stage, lights warmed the headmistress's face. "And now, dear parents and students," she said, "our Ramadan contest winner. This year, one painting in particular captured not only the light of Ramadan, but the shadows that make that light precious." Nour's stomach dropped. The headmistress opened an envelope, smiled. "The winner is 5th-year student Nour Benali for her painting A Suhoor." Applause burst out, scattered and surprised. Hafsa's hands came together, tears still shining. Karim clapped too, slow, eyes never leaving his daughter. "Go," Hafsa whispered, nudging Nour. Every step down the aisle felt like wading through water. On the stage, the headmistress put the small box of professional watercolors in her hands. It was heavier than it had looked behind glass. "Do you want to say a few words?" the headmistress asked, leaning the microphone toward her. The idea of her small, shaking voice echoing around the hall made Nour's lungs seize. She shook her head fast. The headmistress chuckled kindly. "Our artist lets her painting speak," she said. Nour turned. From up there, the hall looked different, smaller. Every face turned toward her, her siblings, wide-eyed, classmates whispering, parents nodding. Her gaze found her family. Hafsa's expression was a tangled thing, pride, pain, gratitude, fear. Karim's eyes glistened. Hamza's mouth was a straight line, but his hands weren't in his pockets. He clapped once, twice. Selma held up her phone, recording, eyes shining. Amina's headphones dangled forgotten. Samir caught her eye and actually smiled, small, crooked, but real. For the first time in a very long time, Nour did not feel like she had to make herself as small as the corner of the table. She stepped off the stage, the prize box pressed to her chest. The night outside felt thicker and hotter after the hall's buzz. On the walk home, no one said, "Why did you draw me like that?" or "You embarrassed us." They said very little at all. But the silence no longer felt like a wall. It felt like a room being rearranged. Eid morning dawned with a pale, soft light. The last Suhoor of the month had always carried two flavors for Nour, relief and grief. Relief that thirst and tired afternoons would end. Grief for the hours she loved. The kitchen looked the same bright bulb, the same scarred table, the same mismatched chairs, the harira thinner, the msemen fewer. Someone, probably the bakery man, had slipped an extra crooked one into their bag. The same brass bowl of dates, but the air was different. Hafsa moved a little slower, but her movements had less drag. She hummed under her breath as she set out glasses. Remember when Yusuf insisted milk should be in bowls because glasses are for adults? She said suddenly, a small smile appearing. Karim, placing spoons beside plates without needing to be told, chuckled. He spilled every time. And you scolded him like a general, she said. And you had a second bowl ready, hidden, he replied. Their eyes met for a heartbeat. A thread of their old language, shared memory, crossed between. The older kids slid into their chairs. Hamza nudged the dates closer to Salma without comment. She took one and murmured, "Thanks." Amina left her headphones on the counter, their loop of black cable like a bracelet she'd chosen not to wear. Samir's chair made its usual scrape, but he sat more upright. I threw the cigarettes away, he muttered, eyes on the table. The room stilled. Karim looked at him, then nodded. "Good," he said quietly. "If you want to walk with me some nights after iftar, we can, to clear our heads instead." Samir's ears went pink. "Maybe," he mumbled. "Bismillah," Karim said. They ate. Nour watched, as she always had, but the usual tight fear at the base of her throat had loosened. She no longer felt like she alone was responsible for holding this hour together. She had poured it into paper. It had turned like a key. Conversation stayed small. Eid al-Fitr visits, whose clothes still needed last stitches, which aunt made the best sweets. No one said painting. No one said divorce. But under the little talk, something healthier breathed. Karim's chair was closer to the table, only a hand's width, enough to be felt. His body leaned in when someone spoke. Hafsa's laugh came more easily, even if it broke sometimes in the middle. When Amina spoke about a friend whose parents had separated but still do Eid al-Fitr together, Hafsa's fingers tightened on her glass, then loosened. "Not everyone who says ugly words becomes ugly," she said, almost to herself. The word divorce still floated in their story. It might never happen. It might. But if it did, Nour sensed now, it wouldn't be a grenade. It would be a painful adult decision. Not her fault. Not a child's painting's fault. Yusuf's chair was still empty. Hafsa, without thinking, placed a date on the plate in front of it. "Maybe next year," she said. "Insha'Allah," Karim answered. This time the word sounded like genuine hope, not excuse. On the shelf by the kitchen door, her new watercolor set waited, still unopened. 24 tiny squares of color slept inside. She wasn't sure yet what she would paint next. Not this table. They had their picture. Maybe the fountain, if water ever came back. Maybe the pomegranate tree at school, heavy with fruit. Maybe just light on ordinary tiles. "Nour," Hafsa said, drawing her back. "Naam, Mama?" "Pass the tea," Hafsa smiled. Nour wrapped her hands around the teapot's handle. It was heavy, but manageable. She poured, listening to the high liquid thread of tea into Karim's glass, then Hamza's, then Salma's. The sound was small and bright. Hafsa reached across and tucked a flyaway hair back behind Nour's ear. The gesture was as familiar as breathing. This time, Nour leaned into it, just a fraction more. Outside, the fudged adhan rose from the minaret, lacing itself through the open window. "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar." "Quick," Hafsa said, mother automatic, "last sips." They finished just as the adhan ended. "The fast has begun," Karim murmured. They stood. In the courtyard, prayer mats lined up, thin, their colors faded. Foreheads went down to cool tile. Shoulder to shoulder, the family bent. Nour's voice joined al-Fatiha, small but steady. She did not spill out long du'as afterward. She did not know what to ask in fancy words. But in sujud, her forehead pressed to the mat, she felt something new in the tiny space between her and the ground. It wasn't the weight of unspoken fear or the urge to beg Allah to fix what no one admitted was broken. It was just space, just breath, just the fragile beginning of trust. She stayed one heartbeat longer than usual, then rose with the rest. Outside, Eid was waiting with sweets and visits and new clothes and old grievances. Inside, under a simple yellow bulb, the Benali family folded their mats together. The painting of Suhoor still hung in the dark school hall, light off, dust dancing lazily around it. Maybe a janitor would glance at it. Maybe no one would see it again. It didn't matter. The real work had already happened. In one small kitchen in the Medina, a girl who drew what she saw had given her family a mirror. They had looked, and in that looking, by Allah's mercy, a new kind of hour had begun. You've been listening to Ramadan Miracles, a Noorsign Books original. And so Nour Benali's journey comes to an end. A girl who drew what she saw gave her family a mirror, and in that looking, by Allah's mercy, a new kind of hour began. Sometimes the greatest healing isn't in fixing what's broken, but in having the courage to see it together. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next miracle. Visit Noorsignbooks.com to join our community and get the full collection. Jazakumullah khairan.